I'm John Bagley, I'm the chair of the International Fundraising Consultancy, and this is number 15 in our series of fundraising fundamentals. Over-communicate. So we all send out memos, alerts, flares, various pieces of communication to people. We phone them up and we chat to them. But very often when we send out that memo, perhaps as leaders or managers, we expect people to pick it up and to run with it. And then we look at it 6 months or 9 months later and we say, why haven't you done this? We cannot expect people to always think about what we're saying to them. So much else is going on in the world. It's terribly important if you're to convince people that what you're doing and saying is the right way of acting, that you over-communicate with them, that you inspire them, that you make sure they really understand what you're saying. And that may mean that you communicate in different ways. It may be standing up speaking, it might be memo writing, it might be through emails, it might be through all kinds of other pieces of communication. And that is exactly the same thing with your donors. You cannot send out a letter and expect those donors to respond to that letter and then to keep it indefinitely. It's important for you to keep that communication going. Make sure that you're in their minds, their hearts and their minds quite frequently. When you're thanking them, come back and thank them for something. But then look at what else you can talk to them about. Newsletters, email, correspondence, all kinds of methods of communication are really useful. If you only have one method of communication, then you stand a chance that that's not the person's key method. But also ask your donors, how would they like to be communicated with? Then you get an inkling of what kind of journey they want. It is very important because people often do not communicate in certain ways. And if that's your way of communicating, you might miss out on a lot of donors. So it's important to communicate in a range of ways so that is out there, but then to find out which is the best one for them. What is the one they're most comfortable with? And that will mean that they're much more responsive to what you're doing. If you're setting goals for your staff, talking about leadership for a minute, then those need to be clear goals, they need to be repeated goals, they need to be emphasized so as the staff remember them and realize you're putting importance on them. That repetition reinforces importance. It means that you think something is important and that conveys it to other people. Exactly the same thing when you're campaigning or when you're looking to raise money, you're running some kind of fundraising program. If, for example, you're doing crowdfunding, then setting up your crowdfunding mechanism is fine. But then you need to say, we've just raised so much money. We're halfway through our program now. Please help us again. Look, this great donation has come in, but we need a little bit more. All that communicating and that enthusing people, having excitement in what you're doing, making what you're doing appear exciting is terribly important. All that sweeps people along with you. They'd much rather take part in something which is being successful, which is developing and growing and looks exciting, than they would in something which is dull and boring and just a single donation they make sometime, perhaps. When you're doing the over-communicating, think about listening to the feedback. You will get feedback. Some of that feedback will be constructive and useful, and you should acknowledge that and take it on board. Some of that feedback will be destructive, and some of it you can ignore, and some of it you will have to answer, because people expect you to have that dialogue with them, that conversation with them. That is terribly important. So, over-communicate. Make sure people really know both what you stand for, where you are, and the various things that are important to you, and as an organisation and as a fundraiser, over-communicate with your donors so that they know and understand and they feel part of the exciting development and journey of your organisation and the development of your beneficiaries. So they clearly feel part of something which is being successful and which is exciting and which you're determined to tell them about because it's important. Okay, that's the end of number 15, over-communicating. And I hope I haven't over-communicated too far this time. Great. So next time, in number 16, we'll be looking at what makes a successful organisation. We're going to broaden the scope of our fundraising fundamentals a little bit and look at the 5 different talks about what makes great organisations, what makes great charities, what makes them really succeed and be very effective, both in their fundraising and in the rest of the work that they do. Okay, thank you very much, and I look forward to being with you again soon.